Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow podcast hosted by Allison Turner. In each episode, we interview real, everyday entrepreneurs to learn how they got their start, what challenges they faced and overcame when starting the business, and what successes each has had. Welcome to the Dream, Plan, Start, Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. I am the host of this show, and the purpose behind this show is really to talk to other entrepreneurs on how they got their start, what challenges they had, what successes they had, and kind of where their journeys led them along the way. I really want to educate people that are looking to start up a business or maybe are in business early on of what the challenges are, and each person's different. So today I have with me, Wendi Blum Weiss, who I know was in the pharmaceutical industry for years and years and years and kind of moved up in that world and then went out on your own. I know you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a business coach. I'm sure you do some other things that I'm leaving out of that area of expertise. But what made you, I guess, leave the pharmaceutical world and go out on your own and venture out into this?
Well, it's a great question. I would have never imagined that I was going to leave. I figured I was going to do that for the duration, although I felt like something was missing, but I didn't quite know what it was. I just landed in that industry. I met somebody in that industry, and when I started in that industry, it was very good to me. And then when I started on a personal growth path, I started asking myself different questions. The number one question is who am I, and who am I really, and who do I want to be? And when I started to ask those questions, I didn't even know anything about the world of entrepreneurship. I mean, to me, everybody was a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer or a professional of some sort. So I didn't even really know of the entrepreneurial world at all. And then on the personal growth path, I started meeting people that were starting businesses. And although I will say, if I backtrack for a moment, I have always been entrepreneurial, but didn't know it was a thing. And I babysat when I was 13, and through college, I painted houses, and I had to find the customers, the clients. Oh, and I started a wallpaper business. Yeah, I wallpaper and paint, to make some extra money, like a side hustle. I had a job.
Still do that?
No, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. That was a side hustle back then. But it was so interesting. I had a job. So I worked at a grocery store. And then on the side, to make extra money, I painted houses. And I could make really good money on a weekend. I could make more money on a weekend painting houses than I could all month long working at a job.
See, maybe you should reverse those two.
Well, it was really, really interesting, and then another time I wanted some side money, and I started a gift basket business. I just started putting gifts in a basket and put a nice bow on there. And so I started that business. So when I say I didn't know about the world of entrepreneurship, I didn't know it was a thing. It was a thing. And so I started to put my baby toe in. And I think once you get hooked, you find out that you can be your own boss. And you have some freedom and flexibility. I had none in the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, they told you exactly what to do. So that is how it came about.
What did you start with first when you first came out of that industry? I know you didn't just start speaking, I don't think.
No. So what I started doing is I put messages on t-shirts. I got Sharpie, and I went to Target, and I picked up blank t-shirts. And I put inspirational messages on the t-shirts, and I wore them. And then I said, let me go to a printer and get them printed. And I printed them. People liked them. And then I rented a table at a temple or a church, a school, and I started to sell t-shirts. That's really how it started.
Okay. And then where did it evolve from? Because I know you're not doing that now. Where did it keep evolving in the next step?
Well, it kept evolving. So because of the messages on the t-shirts, I was asked to speak.
Okay.
And I had a lot of messages and they wouldn't even fit on the t-shirts. So I started all of these different themes on the shirts. And an aha moment for me was when I got a phone call and someone told me I had about 50 different messages. And they told me that they weren't wearing the t-shirts, that they were putting them around their room and they were reading the t-shirts.
Huh.
For
It's like
inspiration.
You can't read your own t-shirt.
Positive messages, right? For positive messages. So I took all the messages that were on the t-shirts and I compiled them together and that became my first book.
Huh. First book. So that was a while ago then. I don't think I've seen that book.
It was like 12, 14 years ago. That was my very first book. And the question that I put on the t-shirt that was on every one of the t-shirts was the question I asked myself, what is your destiny?
Okay. So from What is Your Destiny, you had the book. And then what was the next step?
So the next step is people started asking me for advice. Now, at the same time, because I was on this personal growth path and healing path, I was taking classes and studying NLP, how to reprogram the subconscious mind. That to me was quite intriguing. And when I was writing down the messages on the t-shirts, I was reprogramming my own mind and I didn't even realize I was doing that. And lo and behold, it was like reconditioning the way that I was thinking. So people were asking me for advice. Like one of the messages is, what is your destiny? To be strong, powerful, courageous, and fearless. And I was anything but courageous or strong or fearless. I wasn't those things. But when I started writing them, I became more confident. And then people were coming to me and asking me for advice, like, how do you become confident? And lo and behold, it became like my first coaching client and it grew into a business eventually.
So it was more of in the life coaching type of arena?
In the beginning, although my background is sales.
Right.
So when I was asked to speak, I was always asked to speak. The very first time it was all sales and marketing related.
Right. So do you still speak on sales?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. I love sales. To me, sales is opportunity to help somebody. Who can I help? What can I share? How can I make a difference in the world? And not giving somebody having a sales conversation with them is withholding an opportunity for someone to have a transformation. So I love.
She flipped the switch.
I do love the process of sales.
Yeah, you explain it much differently than some people. So I don't know if I would say the pharmaceutical industry was giving all those opportunities, but that's my own personal voice.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I talked about patients. I didn't go in there to sell the medication. I went in there to talk about the patients and how to increase the quality of someone's life. And I had long-term relationships. So it wasn't like one sale and you leave and that's it. It was really about caring about people.
Okay. And then how did the coaching and business evolve? I know you do some more business coaching and speaking coaching now. So how did that kind of evolve over the years?
Oh, well, I started speaking. So right away, I was turning 50 as I was entering into this new industry. And I thought, well, I don't have a lot of time. How can I build a business and how can I get to six figures? Like, how is that going to happen?
I don't have a lot of time.
Like, I don't have,
well, 50 old
At
now?
least that's what, no. And especially now, I can tell you 50s are like babe in the woods, definitely very young. But I thought, how can I shorten the learning curve? And you can go one-to-one or one-to-many. And I really liked the model of speaking. I could talk to one person, or I could be talking to 30, or I could be talking to 300. So the message that was in my heart was big. It was my mission, my legacy, my purpose. And so I wanted to share it with as many people as possible. So why not fill up a room?
Okay. So did you start creating your own events then? Because I know you do some of your own events now, but is that how you started with the event world, or did you speak at other people's events, or a combination of the two?
These are great questions. I did both. I wanted to speak on other people's platforms and stages, but I knew I didn't really have a lot of experience. So I did both. I set a goal the first year, because, we set goals. You go through personal growth. You're like, I'm setting goals. So I wrote down on my goal list that I wanted to speak 111 times.
Oh, wow.
I was going to count everything. There was like telesummit, like a teleclass. It didn't matter if I was on a panel. I was going to count everything. So, and I wasn't paid. I just went and volunteered to speak, and nonprofits, anybody who would have me, I would speak. And then I decided that I would have my own event as well. So the very first year I decided to have my own event as well. I was so nervous about it. I was so afraid. And that way I'd be able to speak in person, and I could kind of, build the whole thing around what I was doing. So.
Right. So when you said you set that goal of 111 times, did you hit that goal?
When it's like concrete right in front of you and you're calculating, 1, 5, 10, yes, but I counted everything. Everything counted. If I spoke to 3 to 5 people, that counted, I spoke.
Okay. But would you recommend, so if someone wanted to be a speaker now, and maybe they were just getting started on that path, is that like a path you would recommend, is like try and get your message out there to as many people as possible, even if you're speaking for free, go to anyone that, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, whether it's, like you said, nonprofits, any, whatever that message ties to. Is that what you would recommend?
100%, because it's like anything, you have to get your laps in.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, like I run a Clubhouse room, which is an audio app, and I've been on there 500 days. And I encourage other people to come on and co-mod and speak so that they're speaking 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and they can keep practicing their messaging.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. I have my own Clubhouse room. I don't have a ton of people that come in there, but I also don't market it a ton. I need to market it a little bit better than I do. But it's in the middle of the day. I know yours is early in the morning. Yeah. But I think that's, and plus you have Zoom now too, which wasn't the thing back 10 years ago. So you can create your own little mini conference or mini class or mini whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more, probably more opportunities now. And because there's Wisdom app, there's Clubhouse, there's what's the other one that's out there? I can't remember what the other audio app is. So there's all these different opportunities now to do your own thing.
Yeah, 100%. And also going live, doing an Instagram live, doing a YouTube short, doing Facebook Live. I mean, all these things. And now LinkedIn Live. So there are lots of opportunities, and I count all of them as speaking, because you're speaking one to many. Yeah. And it's a great way for people to get to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to hone your message a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Some people, I know I've done videos on Facebook, where I'm just kind of talking. I do kind of a day in the life of the entrepreneur. I'm doing a blog this month for 30 days on that. So I'm writing it this time around for 30 days to try and get into the book writing mode so I can start working on the book in September.
Great.
But yeah, I think that consistency over and over and over again gives you that confidence to then continue building. Because I think, the biggest thing I see with people starting a business is that they don't have the confidence. So kind of like you were talking about when you first kind of branched out on your own, and where you were reading the messages over and over and you gained it because of that, that they don't have the confidence, or that fear factor comes in because they think, okay, I got to sell something like right now because I got to pay the rent, or I got to, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they don't have necessarily that income saved up to fall back on or whatever. So they go into fear and then they don't do anything to kind of build the long-term plan. They just go for the immediate, sale or whatever they can do right this second to generate income, but they don't focus on like, okay, if I want to really be a speaker, what do I need to do to get there? It's not like someone's going to hire me to be a speaker if you're not, if they've never heard of you or seen you speak.
Yeah, initially, we'll create a speaker's reel, like for sure, like out of the gate. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. You have to look at the whole big picture of building a business, collaborate with people, and figure out. Sometimes you pay to speak. Like that's a model as well. And there was always like in the networking meetings that you could be showcased for like 5 minutes and then stand up in front of the group and showcase your product or service.
Right. And I know you can do that on certain meetings where they just showcase one person for like the 5 minutes or, I know I'm in a group NPI, so they do like the 10-minute, once depending on how many members are in your group, once every 20 something weeks in our group. Yeah. I get that 10-minute opportunity to kind of focus in on specific services. So yeah, so pretty much everything is a speaking opportunity.
It is.
Anytime you meet somebody, it's a speaking opportunity. You just have to kind of think it through that way. Now you talked a minute ago about training and kind of how critical that was in your kind of early path. And I know you still do a lot of reading and learning and things like that. But from the early stages, you talked about, you took a class on NLP and you took some other classes. So what would you say to someone that wants to start a business of how important that learning piece is?
I think it's continuous learning, like building your skill set is really important. You have to get the foundational pieces down. You have to hire somebody. You have to have a coach, a mentor, somebody who's a few steps ahead of you that's going to peel back the curtain and be very authentic in sharing what mistakes that they have made. And you're going to make mistakes and you have to be willing to take the risk and continue to do the work so that you can continue to believe in yourself and moving forward. And sometimes, like I had to build an exit strategy. I didn't just leave like this. I thought about leaving and I said, okay, what's it going to take? I cut back on a few things, so I knew I didn't have as many expenses. So I started to visualize the new version of me being an entrepreneur and what that looked like. And then I had to dress rehearse. I was going to do it. It took a couple years. I had to literally practice because, these were people I worked with and really cared about. And I was afraid to leave. So I had to keep talking myself through it, like giving myself a pep talk and saying I could do this, or it was I can do this and I must do this because it felt like it was a calling inside. It was bigger than me and it didn't ever go away. It's not like I forgot about it and say, just forget about it. I just thought I think that I am put on the planet to do this thing. And that was always in the back of my mind. It didn't happen in a minute.
Like some people are like, let's just jump. I think you and I both probably know some people like that are just all of a sudden they're like, you see like this new website up and you're like, wait a minute, weren't they just doing this over here? And now they're over here and doing this.
Yeah.
I've seen a few people that do that here in Delray.
Yeah. It's possible, but I think it's more likely to transition and think it through all the way across the board. If you have your bills to pay and you don't want to go into overwhelm, and you certainly don't want to be looking for clients because you need clients.
No. That's the right message.
Right. People know that in a second.
Right.
And so it's really important to come from a strong place and to transition with thinking the whole process through.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think most people do because maybe that fear section does play into it. So they really have to kind of psych themselves up with taking the leap. But I think we're in a different time now where either people were laid off during the last 2.5 years and they were forced, they couldn't find a job. So they were forced into entrepreneurship, or they've reevaluated kind of like what you said with the calling. because they've been working from home and now their office is wanting them to come back to work, and they're kind of reevaluating, like, well, do I really want to go back to that office, or do I like working here? They're reevaluating kind of what they're doing to some degree.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, what would you say to someone like that that's really kind of rethinking, almost like, you had different circumstances, but kind of what you did too, and I think I've done as well, is kind of rethink the direction I was going and saying, wait a minute, is this like really the path I want to go? And it may have been the right path initially, like yours was the right path initially, but you got to a point in your life where you're like, yeah, the path's really over here right now.
Well, it's interesting with the t-shirts because they sold really well, but it was a lot of work. There was a lot more involved in it because there was all the sizing, all the colors, and the inventory. And so that happened. And so I had to ask myself that question, do I want to be in the t-shirt business? And the answer was no, but I wanted to be involved in inspiring people and helping them transform their lives. So that piece right there. And I still do the t-shirts from time to time when I host an event. I may print t-shirts, but I found that wasn't, if I was spending too much time doing inventory, that wasn't something that was up my alley, right? So you have to know what you don't want and what were the parts that I did like and that I did enjoy. And I had to think, and the small profit margin too, because I was selling wholesale. I was also selling direct to consumer, but I was selling, the easier way to sell is to sell wholesale, and then there's a smaller margin.
Right.
And then
I sell more, but for less money.
And then there's always something else. What about men's line? What about a kid's line? I'm like, whoa, like I'm not doing everything under the sky here. This is my niche right here.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it all. But yeah, it was, it led me on the path. So I always say to someone who's asking, they don't really know what their passion is and they just feel like they want to do something else in their life, is to think back to what gives you the most pleasure when you're in your zone of genius, to start exploring what that is.
Yeah.
And start a side hustle. You can easily now start a Shopify or a website and have products and start selling products and making some side cash and see how that feels, and just follow the trajectory and see where it goes. But these days, anybody can go into business because they can produce a website, right? So
yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, I know, my company does websites, but then we also, people can now go on, the GoDaddy website builder, Wix, or some people venture into WordPress, but, there's a lot of different options out there. So that's what I always tell people, like anyone can throw up a website, very quickly. I mean, you could throw one up tomorrow. I mean, I could build a different one tomorrow and say, okay, now I'm this.
You could.
Yeah.
You need people to actually go to your website,
to actually
buy your product,
right,
and then come back and then be
tell
a long term, right?
Yeah, tell other people about the website.
Tell people and continue to buy on your website. So it's not that easy.
No.
And from doing website, you need to have the whole back end, search engine optimization, and all the things. So I never recommend that somebody try to figure out and do this stuff on their own.
It's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true. And I think you make a great point from the passion side, because you have to have passion in what you do, especially when it's your own business. It's one thing if you want to work for someone else and maybe you like what you do, but it's not like your passion, because it's not your company. So you can go and work from 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are. And then at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I'm done. And,
not think about it.
I can go back the next day, as opposed to us that, I walk out of my office and then I go home and then I'm like, oh, I forgot that. And I have to write it down. Otherwise I forget it, or I run and do it, or whatever it is. So I think you have to have that passion, because I've seen too many people start businesses that maybe their friend had a business that really did well in whatever the industry, and they decided to do that because, oh, well, my friend did it and it did really well financially. But then they get in there and they're like, I don't really like this business, and then they don't really do well financially because they don't have that passion for it. So I think that's a key piece. So what would you say, if someone wanted to discover their passion? I mean, I know, sometimes I recommend journaling, visualization, things like that. What would you say to help kind of bring that out a little bit more if they're not really sure? I know you just said, go back to where you can visualize yourself, really honing something. Because I think, sometimes it's hard for people to see, if it's something like t-shirt creation or, something like that, then they're like, okay, where does that go though? Maybe they don't want to do inventory like you didn't want to do inventory.
Well, I think I think we're all creative, and I think tapping into your creativity is really important. So to do the things that are playful things and to do new things, and that includes like driving a new way home and going to a new restaurant, trying new food, just being around different types of people and having different types of conversations. Yeah. I think all of those things ignite the part that's there that could be kind of, dormant and bring it back out again. Like you get good ideas if you just go for a swim in the ocean and that sort of thing. But we are habitual beings. And if we do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. So how do you switch things up and do something that's creative and different and allows empty space for new ideas to come in? In Japan, they disconnect in the middle of the day and they have this thinking time. We might call it meditation. And that is why meditation is really helpful, or going dancing is it's like helpful, or cooking, like all those things, right? Gardening or whatever. But do something that creates space so that ideas can land somewhere. Okay. That's what I would 100% recommend. I still try to do that all of the time.
Okay. So you think doing that daily? I mean, you said Japanese do that. I haven't actually heard that, but do it on a daily basis, or they have that shutdown time. I know the Spanish, have the siesta time.
Yeah, see, siesta. Everybody needs the siesta. Everybody
Yeah.
needs that downtime. And I do think it's important, like for me, and I think you do this too, is like you go for a walk, like being outside in nature, watching the sunrise or the sunset or listening to music. Like these just allow, like if we just fill our space with watching TV, being on the phone, just chit-chatting with people, having the same conversation or scrolling.
Yeah.
Or scrolling. So if you just do those things, you might feel creative scrolling, but you also are also envious of like, oh my goodness, look at them. And oh my goodness, look at them. How come them, not me? Not that.
Yeah.
If you saw something, you go, okay, I want to like take their workshop and like learn something. That's a whole different thing. But I think it is really important. And you mentioned journaling. And the thing about journaling is it's kind of a more active meditation. Mm-hmm. It allows you to go into the back part of your brain and say, what's in there? I kind of forgot. There's so many things in there. You can go in there and start retrieving some of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And I mean, if you have a hard time journaling, I know, sometimes you can find like just kind of starting places on the internet, or I know people have created books of.
I have a journal, like a journals with journal prompts, and there you go. Like asking what's most important to me. How do I feel right now? Like just asking questions to start explore. Who do I want to become? I think is a great journal prompt, and seeing yourself 5 or 10 years down the road, and what does that look like? And maybe nothing comes to mind. Maybe you're like, okay, what does that look like? Maybe you get the idea that I'm fit. And then you're, okay, I'm fit. Well, am I fit now? Or is there a gap? Like, what am I doing? Am I eating chips all day? Or, maybe I want to modify. and you start asking these questions, and it will overflow, because I believe that everything in your life touches everything. And
So true.
If the way that you eat, the way that you know, what the habits that you have in your home, those things are going to affect other things. So you start mixing things up. I know that's what happened for me. I started mixing things up. I used to watch TV. This was back like 15 years ago. I used to watch TV. Then I turned the TV off, and then I started reading. And just that one thing made a huge difference, because you just watch like these sitcoms or whatever kind of shows over and over again, whatever I was watching 15 years ago. And then I turned off the TV, and then I started reading books that provoked different kinds of thinking. And before you know it, I started learning new things, and I said, oh, that's exciting. Let me apply it in my life. And then you apply it in your life, and you go, huh, I'm getting a different result in my life. That's a good thing.
No, everything you just said. So it's interesting, because I think, like you said, everything kind of touches everything. So if you eat not so well, for example, that impacts other areas of your life. Now, maybe you're someone that's got a really high metabolism, so you can eat not well and still not gain weight. Lucky you. If I did that, I would weigh like 500 pounds. But it's still, if you're eating a lot of sugar, it's still going to impact other areas of your life. It still impacts brain function and how, or if you eat a lot of carbs, or if you, things like that, all kind of impact that. If you don't exercise at all, that can impact different things, So it's like everything, touches upon everything else, for sure. Now, I know you're bringing out, because your new book's not out yet, right? It's in the process of coming out.
It's pre-launch, so it's out pre-launch. It's coming out on September 6th. So depending on when somebody is watching this, it might already be out. But the whole book is around the premise of what you're called to do in your life, whether you're called to speak, called to lead, called to impact, or to be an entrepreneur. Like, what are you called? And we have this sort of floating around in there, but a lot of people, like myself, didn't pay any attention to it.
Well, you paid attention when it was the right time to pay attention.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to wait till, it's just like that right time when something clicks in your life, whatever that is, or something disastrous happens, or something really good happens, can like prompt those as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm surprised you didn't bring a copy of the book. I've had a couple of people bring their books on, like, to promote. So.
Well, I'll have to come back with the actual copy of the book.
But how did you decide, I know, to do a compilation book? Because I know, like, you've written your own books, you've published some of your own stuff, but this time around you chose to do a compilation book, and a compilation book is when you have multiple authors. You may be the lead author, but you have multiple authors that have written in that same book, so you don't have to write, if it's 100, whatever, how many pages, 150-page book, maybe you're writing 20 of those pages, but then they're filling in the rest of the pages. So how did you decide to kind of move that direction now?
I decided many years ago, like right after launching my business, I didn't want to do anything alone, that I wanted collaborators. I wanted community. I wanted partnerships, collaborators. And that is the model that I've used in my business. Is why I started the Speakers and Coaches Society, because I wanted to be surrounded by other speakers and other coaches and creatives. And when it came to writing a book, I didn't know that there were any other options. I thought, you write a book. And then when I heard about this model,
right,
that there could be a collection, the collective of authors, like writing their chapters together, I thought, well, that makes so much more sense. I'm not going to write another book. And that's what took me so long in between. Really was a 5-year period where I didn't produce anything. And I was waiting. I had the vision. I saw it. And I met with publishers, and it just wasn't the right fit. And then I met somebody during COVID, Worcester publisher, and it was. And decided that now's the time to do it. And I'm so proud of this body of work, because the other authors are so magnificent. They're so talented. and heart-centered, legacy-driven, and to be partnered together. We have a total of 22 authors. So to be partnered together, 22 authors strong that feel from the inside out that they want to make a bigger difference in the world, that they have this calling.
Right.
So that's how it came about.
Okay. So you mentioned collaboration, and early on you saw everything as kind of a collaboration, and that's kind of how you wanted to grow your business. So it's interesting that you've modeled that, and then you didn't know about the collaborative book until you knew about it. And that's when you brought the collaboration out, once you found kind of that right publisher. So I think that's a good model, because I think oftentimes entrepreneurs feel alone, especially if they're a solopreneur.
Yes.
They start a business, and even if they have a business coach or a mentor, it's still one person. So the other times, and obviously, those other times can be lonely while you're trying to implement, and then you run into a roadblock. And I know I just interviewed Laura McKinney, Frank and Nelson McKinney's daughter. So she's 24. So most of her immediate friend circle are not entrepreneurs because they've just come out of college.
Yeah.
So you don't have anyone around you. So she's pulled in kind of people that are maybe in their 30s that she's met.
Yeah.
That she, bounces stuff off of, because she's had to kind of find outside that immediate friend circle. I mean, you and I can find people in our immediate friend circle that are entrepreneurs, but someone that's that young can't necessarily do that.
Even in my early 50s, I had to go seek and look for those people. I had to get really uncomfortable and walk into an entire room of people that I did not know. And start building relationships with them, because you can't go into partnership with somebody you just meet, literally. So you have to develop rapport and relationships and build trust. And right away, I joined a couple organizations, and they embraced me, and I was so fascinated by it. And one of the groups was a group of sisters that joined. It was Women's Prosperity Network. Yeah. And they were collaborating together, and they were bringing together groups of speakers, and they had invited me to come speak, like right out of the gate. They asked me to speak. It was probably one of the first stages I had been on, and they asked me to speak. And then I thought, well, these are my people.
Yeah. No, they did. I used to go to them back early, maybe in 2011, 2012, which is where Jack and I met.
Yeah. Same time.
Yeah. So I remember, that was, I know collaboration was in their motto somewhere.
Yeah. I guess it went in, I didn't really think of it at the time. But now the core foundation for the Speakers and Coaches Society is community, connection, and collaboration, like those C's, those really important C's. And I don't want to do anything without it, because it can be very exhausting to be on your own. And you just sometimes want somebody who's gone through the same thing or going through the same thing currently, like that you can just have that support and just talk and somebody really understand, because chances are maybe your spouse won't, or, or your friend circle, like you were just talking about. So you need to have people that can relate to the world, the business world that you're in. So that is really, really helpful, because entrepreneurs work all the time. They're so passionate about things, and they wear a zillion different hats. They have a zillion different ideas all the time. So how do you have somebody hone you back, like bring you back to reality, or somebody that you can just vent and say, I'm so exhausted. And it's really helpful. Or somebody that has an area of expertise, like you have your own area of expertise, and then you can form a partnership and really, like I always say, that we're stronger and wiser and better together than we are individually.
Now, because I know you have 2 sons, so did you start this entrepreneurial journey when they were still younger, or were they out of the house at that point?
Oh, they had T-shirts. Everybody had T-shirts.
You didn't make
They were
men's
there
t-shirts.
in high school. I had to start the men's line because I had boys, and the girls all loved the clothing line. So it started really before when they were like 14, 15.
Okay.
So they liked it. They liked the T-shirts. But they also thought, Mom, you've got a great career. Like, you're not going to leave that career, right? And they're thinking about what they're majoring in and going to college and those sort of things. So they thought, well, and besides, I changed. I changed a lot. I used to do everything for them. I was like a doting mom, 15. I'm like, all of a sudden, I was like, wait, you can be independent.
Yeah,
You can
guys are
make your
old
own
enough.
breakfast. You guys can do your own laundry. And they're like, what happened to you? And
Where'd my mom go?
where is she? And I said, well, she's a little different these days. And at first they didn't like it, but now they embrace, celebrate
They
it.
weren't necessarily super supportive in the beginning of it.
No, they liked the me that was
Did everything for them.
totally taking care of them, doing everything
Wow.
beyond years, because as parents, like, we want the very best for our kids. But I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do.
Right.
And then there was like other considerations I started to read and learn about, because I'm no longer watching TV and I'm reading a lot. And I thought, oh, okay, so I need to wheel this back. And I did.
Okay. And then your current marriage, how is he supportive of your journey in general?
That's an interesting question, because he's been retired for a lot of years. But
Right.
when he and I started dating, he already knew what I did and how passionate I was about it. I think we were together only 4 months, and I was having an event. and
my world right here.
right before an event, you work like crazy, a zillion hours. I had only been with him 4 months. I'm having an event with like 150 people, maybe 20 speakers. So I'm working, I've got, exhibitors and all that there. So I'm working a lot. And he actually came to that event, and I didn't really spend a lot of time with him. It was 3
Stayed
days.
with her.
I barely spoke to him at all. And he got to just observe, but he knew what he was getting into. He
So
knew.
he knew you worked a lot.
He knew. And he said to me, we still have this conversation. He says, you work a lot. And I said, well, it appears that I'm working because I give creative time, like this space, like writing,
Yeah.
and just exploratory time and thinking time and all of that. And I include walks and all of those things. And it's all part of the equation.
Yeah.
It really is part of the big
Goes back
picture.
to that touching thing. Everything
Yeah,
kind of
everything touches
impacts
everything.
everything else.
So he's accepted it. It took him a minute because he didn't quite understand it. He's like, what kind of person wants to work? Like, doesn't everybody
That's why
want to
he's
do the
been retired
minimum?
so long.
He was like, doesn't everybody want to do the minimum and stop it like as soon as they can?
But he was an entrepreneur too, was he
He
not?
was an entrepreneur, but he has an interesting story. Very interesting story. He asked his employer for a raise. Back then it was a lot of money. He asked him for a $25 raise. And he said to him, he was a buyer in a department store, said, don't let the door hit you on the behind. He was a toy buyer. And what happened was he left.
Started his own
And then
business.
he started his own company, and then he did well because he was a toy buyer and he knew how to buy well. And he had relationships. So he had been doing that. He had established relationships
Yep.
in the industry. So, and then he adds on there that he got lucky, that the timing was good. He got out. He got out when, it was at the high, and he did well. And so he's very humble about it, but he thinks he always had the idea that he wanted to retire and do that. I don't have that idea. I love working.
So he wanted that early retirement once he could get out, and
He thought about those things. I thought about not retiring, I thought about doing something that I love my entire life, all the way through the duration of life. And even if that means my aunt, she did not do this like as a profession, but she taught fitness classes, and she taught, the year she passed away, she was 85.
Oh, wow.
And that year she taught chair aerobics, like sitting in the chair. And I just always really admired that. And it gave her something to do in her mid 80s, where she gathered with other people and helped them with their health and exercise. I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think I would probably be with you. I don't know if I see myself. I think I'd get bored.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I find that even if I take time off or take, on the weekends, if I don't have it like heavily scheduled or like, okay, I need to get these things done, then all of a sudden I'm like, where the heck did the weekend go? Like I got zero done, I get nothing done because I don't have it so heavily scheduled. And sometimes that's good because sometimes you need a break, but oftentimes I'm like, I needed to get this done and this done and this done, but it wasn't in the calendar or whatever it was, and then I don't get anything done. I find the less it's scheduled, the less I get done.
Yeah, scheduling, that to me was a big, when you work for a company, they tell you what to do and what your calendar looks like. They fill in your meetings and all of that. And then when you work for yourself, you're like, oh, I get to fill in my meetings. And if I put them in my calendar, they get done. And if I don't put them in my calendar, they probably don't get done. I better put them in my calendar because nobody else is going to do it for me.
Right. So what would you say to someone, because I know like I'm a type A personality, so I typically am very into that kind of thing, so, but what would you say to someone that wants to start a company that recognizes that they're not that type A person, and they need help in that area?
Well, I say get a really great calendar planner and start, if you're not using an electronic calendar, you have to get some organization together. You must. You can't just give all of that to somebody else, like your assistant, to do. And you have to create the new habit around it. And it's going to be really important if you're going to be a business and you want to make money. Like you think about this, like you tie it into to making money. If you're organized with your calendar and you use your time efficiently, which is really, really important. And it took me a minute, and I liked paper calendars forever. But I also liked that the calendars, including my Best Life Planner calendar, leave space for you to journal in the calendar as well. So you are writing down your priorities, and you're also asking yourself important questions about your why, and that becomes your drive. So when you see it in your calendar, you're also looking at, I set my priorities and this is my mission and this is my why. So it drives you forward. But I say you have to get yourself some sort of system. It's really important, and get yourself into accountability. If you don't have your regimen in place, because we're only as good as our daily habits. And if you don't have that in place, you got to get on a call every day or get accountability a couple times a week. Like you have to have something in place, or you're never going to make the income that is going to be satisfying for you to be able to live a beautiful, well-balanced life.
I think, and also, realize that you can create your schedule the way you need it and not the way your clients necessarily need it. Obviously, if they can only meet with you on a Monday and you never have meetings on a Monday, maybe you make that exception. But like I don't schedule meetings typically on Mondays and Fridays, and that's kind of my choice.
That's me too. Like my Monday and Friday, although now I did add something to a Monday, but I did it by choice. But it's interesting because the thing that I built in on a Monday now, I threw in my personal into it. So I took an office this week. I'm not doing it on the right day, but I took an office like an hour away, but it's near my mom where she's in assisted living. So I am seeing clients there. And then at the same time, I'm seeing my mom in assisted living. So I think that's the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. You build your business and your clients into your life and what's important in your life. And for me, seeing my mom once a week, so I locked in. I actually took a space for a year,
Wow.
and now I know, and my mom knows I'm up there every single week, and I can build in business with it at the same time.
That's great. Took an office an hour away. Huh? Just, I guess, get you out of the
box. It's
Well.
out of the box, and
Well,
it's okay.
It's better than going to like a Starbucks where it's loud and you can't really focus. Or I can't really focus at a Starbucks. I can start watching what other people are doing, and I can meet with people there. But like anything past that, I'm like, okay.
I'm going to invite you to my office. The office is so nice, and
Stuart.
believe it or not, when you go on the outskirts of the metropolitan areas, I got a really good deal on the office. And so it worked out all the way across the board.
Well, now you can have 2 Google profile listings too.
I thought about that.
Multi-office, multi-location business. See, that's what I think. I'm like, maybe I should do that. I'm thinking that way. Yeah, I'm thinking that direction versus like actually going up there to the office. I just need the address. No, I think, that's interesting because, I mean, you've done obviously a lot of different events, kind of like going back in here. You've done events, you've done books, you've done, obviously, I know you have the coaching business. You have, is there anything I'm missing in there?
Yeah.
Speaking.
Just trainings and virtual, and a lot of the virtual stuff now online as well.
But that's like kind of falls under the coaching stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's coaching around speaking or coaching around business or whatever. So what do you like the best out of all those? Is there one you're more passionate about? Or, I mean, I know they all kind of feed each other, so I'm very aware of that. But like if you said, I really love doing this, but these other things feed this.
I really love supporting other people in growing their visibility. And the book, the co-author book, is we already have another one, and I'm really passionate about that because it builds everything together. Because I like to build the events for the speakers so they're on more platforms, live events and virtual events, and also get their message out in book form. I love writing, and I am learning how to become a better writer. Thank goodness for editing and support and all of that along the way. But that's where I see myself being able to leave behind a legacy of some sort. So I really enjoy the writing. The events I like a lot, but they disappear. Like after they're over, they're gone.
Right.
Like everybody's like, that event was amazing. But the book, it's
ask
tangible.
A month later, they're like, what'd you learn at the event? I don't remember who I served.
And
like, can I see the video of that?
It's the greatest thing. And it's the greatest thing while you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, we just produced an event, and it like you have a high from an event and being with the community, and you feel super charged up. But what I really love about the writing is it sits on your bookshelf, and I remember the books that have changed my life. And I do believe that this book is going to inspire and change lives. And the books that are coming forward after this book will do the same, because I'm going to do them in community with the collective, and collectively sharing our stories are really important to share as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing the book does, I mean, you're saying it from obviously your perspective of it, but it brings that, makes that person more of that professional around that service they offer, whatever that is they're actually doing, makes them the expert in that field, whatever they're, depending on what, you're talking about the story that brought them into it, I guess, more in this book, right?
Actually, the authors also share their framework.
Okay.
And go more into deeper aspects of their business, the why of their business, and also what their business provides. Okay. And it really is. And it's such a collection of all different ages and background. We have men and women and that are doing different things in the world. I mean, we have an attorney who is also a law professor, but she is speaking in the book about forgiveness. But it also does highlight what
Right.
she does, because if you want a badass attorney, like, she's the one. So, it's really interesting to get to look at different aspects of a human being.
Yeah. But I think that, having that book or having your name in a book, whether it's a collaboration or it's your own book, it gives you that expert platform. So if you do want to speak more, that's a great thing to have, because now if you are trying to promote yourself to, an event or an event planner, now you can have your speaker reel, but now you can also, if they're looking at your website, you can see that, oh, she's an author too, and she's done this, and she's spoken here, and you're kind of giving them that almost launch pad of, okay, they got the book, and you gave them the stage, so it's kind of like blast off. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the key thing I see about the book, because a lot of people, like you said, writing a book all of your own can take either a lot of time, can take a lot of effort. You got to find the right editors. You can, hopefully you're a good writer, or you can hire a ghostwriter. That's the other thing. You can always hire that ghostwriter, but that costs a lot of money too, to get someone that's actually good at doing that. You don't want just anyone to write your book.
And the fact of actually writing the book.
Right.
Like, just to push through all the resistance. The writer's block is real.
Yeah.
Like, okay, who's going to be there? Say, okay, write. And a lot of people think about writing a book and they don't ever write it. And there are a lot of people that take years and decades, if they ever do write their book, to finally get their book done.
Well, that's why I'm doing this blog a day in the month of August. So I'm getting myself into that writing, because I like to write. So the writing piece is not the problem. It's the time to put into the writing piece. So I have to come up with a different blog topic every day. So I'm like, okay, if I can do this for 31 days or whatever many days are in this month, then at least that'll get me in the path of, it has to be at least 250 words long. So that's my minimum.
Excellent.
So
that's great.
So far.
That creates the habit. So
Exactly.
you are going to write the book. You'll be able to do that, and you write the book. And I like that you start small and you set that goal and you get that done. It builds that muscle, and before you know it, you'll have a book in your hand.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, because I promised someone it'd be launched at the end of November. So, so it has to be in my hand somehow. Not sure how that's going to work, but it'll happen. So if you had to share like one thing with someone that wanted to start a business that either you knew going into entrepreneurship, or maybe you figured out, that really helped you move the business forward, what would be that one thing that you would share with like a beginning entrepreneur?
I would say to mind map it, to put it down on paper. So put that big circle in the center, and then you put all those spokes coming out from the center. And what does that look like for you? So if it's writing and blogging, then it's writing and blogging. If it's having a YouTube channel and creating video, then it's YouTube channel and having the website. Like, so that you can look at things from a 30,000 foot view. I think a lot of entrepreneurs just like go and start and doing a million things. And then they're confused and they're overwhelmed and everything. So I think you have to go to a 30,000 foot view and take all those ideas out of your head and put them down in one visual, so you can look at it and see, does that make sense? And does that feel right? And what's the timeline on this? And what is this going to cost, like investment wise, so that you can make a good decision going forward from the very beginning? Now, I would say if you don't know how to do this, then hire somebody that will sit down with you and map this out alongside you, that you're part of the process. And that is how I would suggest for anybody to begin out of the gate.
Okay. I think that's a great idea, because I do find that, even in my own journey, I have to kind of pause and like, okay, what's a 30,000 foot view? Like you get too much involved in the day-to-day running of the business and not really working on the business. You're working in the business and not on the business.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's essential. That's why like I've been trying like this year to take like not big goals, but 2 mini goals each month that I focus on. So, like one of them is this blog a day for 30 days. Like that's one of the ones for this month. So, I think that's helpful for me because I have kind of the end goals in mind for the year. So it's kind of piecing it all together, because otherwise, like you said, I think people start going and you're like, oh, I got to do this, and then, and they have to do it all at once, and it's not going to happen all at once, or at least it's not going to happen well all at once.
Yeah.
Which is the bigger piece. There's no way, if you're only one person, especially if you're starting a business and you're only one person, you don't have the money to bring on someone to, collaborate with you. If you need to pay someone, then you've got to understand it's still your time. Your time is your time. Like we're all equal on that. So you don't have more than 24 hours. If you can figure that out, let me know. Because I can always use more than 24 hours. But yeah, I think just to focus everything in a little bit more and then realize that there's steps to getting there. I think our generation today is so much into like, I want it now. I don't want to like wait for, what do you mean I got to wait for 2 years to get to here? I want the next month I want to be successful and make $1 million. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this, because you see I see a lot of the social media ads that are out there, not all of them, but some of them that are, buy my program and you can make $1 million in your first year in business. And, you're like, a few people may be able to do that, but they have some kind of special thing that they're doing in order to make that happen, or they have stuff they've already put in place, which you don't hear about that part, that they've already put in place, and then they kind of accelerate because of whatever that program did for them.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And that is one of the things that frustrated me about the industry, to be able to say, like, what is the whole story? Because you only see a snippet of the story. It appears that they just accelerated, took off, and you're seeing like 7 figures and 8 figures. You're like, wait, hold on a second. Can we reel that back for a minute and take a real look at it with a microscope?
Yeah.
And look at magnifying glass and look at that. So I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It requires work.
Yes.
Hard work.
Step by step.
Work, yeah.
And just keep moving.
Yep.
So if anyone wanted to reach out to you, if they had any questions about what you talked about, maybe they're interested in your next collaborative book and being in the book and how to do that, like what's the best way? Is it website, social media, email? What's the best way?
Wendi Blum, and now Wendi Blum Weiss, like you can easily find me. The best way is to reach out through my Wendi Blum website, which is Wendi with an I, not a Y, on my website, but also Speakers and Coaches Society, which you can find at speakersandcoaches.com as well. Okay. So either way, if you're a speaker and coach and you have questions around getting booked on more stages and that sort of things, through Speakers and Coaches, and also my personal website.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining me today.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow show. Again, my name is Allison Turner. I look forward to seeing you further next week. And if you have any questions for me, you can go to dreamplanstartgrow.com. I do offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation. So if you do have any questions on like how to get started, what to do, what are those initial steps, please sign up for that on my website. And I also do a clubhouse on Thursdays at 1 p.m. currently. Check the website in case I change the time, but currently Thursdays at 1 p.m. around a different question on business each week. So thank you again for joining me. And
great being here.
I will see everyone again next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram at Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.